regime if anything happens to Guam. China is taking a stand in this showdown, pledging neutrality if North Korea decides to strike the U.S. first, but in turn will defend North Korea if the U.S. strikes first. All right, Russia Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov calling this rhetoric over the top as Moscow worries about a military conflict. Let's discuss all of this. Harry Kazianis, Director of the Center for National Interest Defense Studies, Paul Bonicelli, Director of Programs and Education at the Acton Institute, as well as a former foreign policy advisor to President George W. Bush, and Dean Chang, an East Asia expert at the Heritage Foundation. Good to see all of you, gentlemen. All right, Harry, we are seeing the key players take sides. Are you surprised by their decisions, what they're saying?
No, not at all. I mean, first to the supposed rhetoric by President Trump, I don't think his rhetoric actually has been all that harsh, and I think it's a little unfair for Beijing or Moscow to be calling him to task. I think we have to have a little bit of a historical perspective here. Remember, in 1983, Ronald Reagan was calling the Soviet Union the evil empire, and then just 2 years later, he's meeting with Gorbachev. So I think we have to understand that these situations, while I'm not sure with North Korea it'll happen, they can turn around. And we have to also keep in mind, too, the president isn't setting policy in 140 characters on Twitter. So I think that the Chinese and the Russians should sort of simmer back down on their own rhetoric.
Dean, China made it clear that they don't want the political pattern on the Korean Peninsula to change. Why not?
Well, from their perspective, they have a situation where Korea, which has been a strategic vulnerability for them throughout most of their history, is now divided, with at least half of it in the hands of a government that isn't anti-China. South Korea, on the other hand, is allied with the United States. We've seen the Chinese put enormous pressure on them to stop the deployment of THAAD and basically say to the South Koreans, you should value China's worries more than your own.
Yeah. Paul, what gets me when we look at the missiles that North Korea has, it kind of caught a lot of us by surprise. How did they advance this technology so quickly? You know, it seems like there are Chinese and Chinese-looking equipment that's showing up in the North Korean inventory. How did they get it so fast?
They advanced this far because the previous three administrations did not do what they should have done to prevent it, particularly the last administration. I mean, blame goes around from Bush administration, Clinton administration, but the Obama administration especially did not do enough to make them talk offline as well as tell them in public the way President Trump and Secretary Mattis have done what the consequences are. And they didn't do enough to make sure China understood we will not tolerate a threat like this. We know you enjoy the torture of us that we endure with North Korea behaving the way it does, but it's not acceptable to us, and there are a lot of levers for us to pull. We will make you regret making us insecure regarding North Korea. There's a president now trying to do it. It's very last minute to get it done, but he's doing the right things, I think.
Yeah, he's certainly putting the pressure on and escalating the rhetoric. But he also said something else today, Harry. With regard to Venezuela, I won't rule out the military option. Are we facing potential wars on many fronts here?
No, I think when you look at the president more than anything else, when he laid out his America First agenda, he's a pragmatist. And I don't think that if you take his rhetoric and you match it up to policy that you're always going to get perfect fits. I think for the president, his main focus now is North Korea, and that's why I think he's been signaling so much, you know, with these fire and fury comments. What he's saying basically is if you nuke the United States, we are going to nuke you back. And I think that's the focus for this administration.
Dean, I have 10 seconds here. I just want to give you the last word. We have the weekend upon us. Do you think things will quiet down a little bit? And do they need to?
No, I don't think so. I think we're looking at tension through the next several weeks.
All right. Well, Wall Street's certainly watching all of this, guys. Thank you for your time. We did see the major averages ending the day slightly higher, but not quite enough, as for the week, stocks post the second worst week of the entire year.